In my last video, we built a CRUD app using vertical slice architecture with controllers. But what if I told you there is an even cleaner and more modular way? In this video, I will show you how to use minimal APIs to build the same CRUD app without bloating the program CS. And you can even download the complete source code for free by using the link in the video description below. So let's dive right in after hitting that like button. Now first, a quick recap. You see the Solution Explorer here already. So we did already some stuff in the last video. So just so you know what the current state is, we have this video game API here with the simple entity video game with ID, title, genre, and release year. Then we have our DB context, our data context here with the video games table using code first migration. The table is already in the database, but the most important part here is this thing, right? The features folder with the video games folder and then all the use cases or all features. Now let's just have a look at the get all games feature here. Now in here you see we are using a static class with some nested classes or records, meaning we have a request object, we have a response object, and then also a handler class with a handle method. Now this stuff here means, don't look at the controller below here, just first this stuff here. This means we already used CQRS in a way with mediator and then also the reaper pattern, meaning we have a request here, right? This thing, this simple record. We also have a response and then an endpoint, and this is the thing down here. So this is what this tutorial now is all about. Regarding the endpoint, we are actually using a controller and we will now turn this into minimal API endpoints. But first, just so you know what's going on here, it is not really necessary to use CQRS. It is not even necessary to use mediator and reaper. Well, in essence, you would still use the reaper pattern. You could also use fast endpoints here. I know lots and lots of buzzwords. Please tell me in the comments if you don't know what this is and you want me to show you what all that is in detail. If you want, you can also join the .NET Web Academy, just so you know. But the most important thing is that the structure is pretty much always the same, and the mediator package helps us keeping that structure, meaning when I have a request object and I choose to use the iRequest interface, it forces us then somehow to use that structure. So also using this handler class with the iRequest handler interface, and this then forces us to implement the handle method where all the business logic is in. Then you don't have to use it again, because here now we are using the sender, and I already read the comments. Why use the sender or mediator here? Everything is in that file, so we don't have to send our requests through a couple of layers, let's say. True, you could also just call the handle method, but again, it gives me some structure, and if I want to use a front end with Blazor, then maybe I can also use the mediator in that case, and I'm in this case then not here in this class. Anyways, you see, we're not implementing this logic here. We will change the API controllers here and turn them into minimal API endpoints, but just so you know, we always have the structure. We have a request object, which can be a query or a command. Then we have a response and a handler class with a handle method, and this thing here and then sends the query or the command. But the thing is now with minimal API, maybe you already know that I did videos about minimal APIs. The problem is that I see still with minimal APIs is that you have to register the endpoints here in the program CS. Let's just have a look at the quick tutorial here from Microsoft, the easiest one. Let's say you have this to do application, and down here you already see it. We are here in the program CS, and you have to write your endpoint there. I know you don't have to, but typically you start that way. You write it with map get for a get method, but it's just one line, right? So this is amazing. When we scroll a bit further down, we see some more endpoints still in the program CS. So it reminds us of Node.js, for instance. If you're familiar with the JavaScript world and the Node.js backend, then this can look pretty similar. So we have our map get here, map post, map put, and so on. Now, you can already improve this by using extension methods or route groups. Also did a video about that already. Or there is an even better way, and I will show you this way today. Funny that this rhymes, but here now in the Solution Explorer, let me just add one package. Manage NuGet packages, and this package is called Carta. This is the one by J. Shannon. Carta is a framework that is a thin layer of extension, methods, and functionality over ASP.NET Core, allowing code to be more explicit and, most importantly, more enjoyable. And indeed, it really is. Now, when I try to install this, at this day, I get some version problems. I don't know why exactly, but as you can see here, it expects something else, and there are problems with NG Framework Core Design, code analysis C#, code analysis common, and so on. So the detected package version outside of dependency, the error is, or the warning is detected package version outside of dependency constraint. And here it says version conflict detected for Microsoft Code Analysis Common install reference version 4.11.0 directly to project to resolve this issue. So this is what I would then just recommend. So if you have problems with .NET 9 or also .NET 8, I don't know, I'm using .NET 9 in this case, and the Carta, you can solve this by just manually installing the latest version of these packages. So let's do that real quick. We try Microsoft Code Analysis Common first. So Microsoft, there it is already, Code Analysis Common. That's the one. Let's just install this. I accept. And let's try to install Carta now. Install. I accept. And we still get some versioning warnings. So we could also install the workspaces. Let me just do that real quick. So we got workspaces, right? Come on. I think this is the one. Code analysis C# workspaces. Let's install that. And just to be sure, we can also install code analysis C#. This should be the one. Install. I accept. Still have two warnings. MS build. Jesus, so many warnings. Microsoft, that would be the one. Install this. And I hope we have no warnings anymore. And Carta seems to be installed. Let's just double check. Lots of packages here, but Carta is there. Now, the great thing with Carta is we just go to the program CS. And now here we say builder services add Carta, like that. We add the reference, and this thing now says nothing. This is really, really sad, but there's one more thing that we have to add. It's not only add Carta, but also map Carta. So here, instead of the controllers, then let's say, instead of map controllers, we say map Carta. It doesn't tell us anything, so maybe, dear developer, you may want to update your documentation or the comments at least. What this thing does is it uses reflection in the end, and every time a specific interface is implemented in your whole project, then this will be used as an endpoint and registered as an endpoint for your minimal APIs. And this is everything you have to do in the program CS. So now we go to, let's say, the get all games controller. And now here, instead of the controller, because let me show you this real quick. What we have here is, when I go there, so the entry point of our user interface here of Scala, you see that for each controller, we have well, an entry here, let's say. Although the routes are actually the same, right? Maybe you know this, when you're using traditional controllers with services and so on, then you have one, in this case, you would have one video game API, one video game controller. I have a video about that, so maybe you want to check it out. And then you would see this video game controller with all the endpoints then below. You would also see API games with the post request, get, delete, put, and so on. Not the case here, so doesn't look that nice. Well, it's just for testing purposes, so maybe it's not that important, because in the app, in the end, you won't see that, or the user in particular won't see that. But still, maybe we want to change that. Maybe we want to write different code and not every single time use the overhead of a controller. So back here now, instead of doing all that, what we can do is we implement a certain class, call this simply endpoint. And one more thing that we can do here is we don't have to, or we can put this now inside our static class here, which is also pretty nice. And that's why I can also call this endpoint now. So really, well, generic in the end. But I have to implement the iCarta module. So this thing here, we open this up, and Copilot did not learn so far what I want to do here. So let's add this manually. We just implement one method, add routes with an I endpoint. Is it there already? There it is. Endpoint route builder, which is the app. And here now we write our endpoints. Copilot suggests app get, it's not 100% correct, map get it is, API games, this is correct, but here now, again, I want to use the sender, don't need events, so the sender it is, and now instead of actually while response, returning response to list, what I just want to do is say await sender send, and then the query. Remove this line and this here, and add a parenthesis. All right, this should be it. So you see a couple less lines, right? I got the endpoint. I hope the curly braces are correct. We don't need this reference here anymore. Save this. So now we got just one endpoint class implementing the iCarta module. Unfortunately, no information what this thing is. But anyways, in there we have to, or we implement the add routes method with the iEndpoint route builder. This thing defines a contract for a route builder in an application. A route builder specifies the routes for an application. Okay, so you know, in the end, this is the thing, right, that you would add here in the program CS, right? But now, to keep it clean and have a better structure there, we can use, well, let's say the vertical slice architecture approach, where we put everything of one feature or one use case inside one file in this case. You can also use one folder, right? So for instance, here we could add a get all games folder and then put several files in there, like the query or the request file, the request class, the response class, then the handler class, and then also an endpoint class. Totally makes sense. It's totally up to you what you want to do, but I was skeptical when I saw this approach here with a static class, but now I really like it actually. So the code and the file is pretty small, not a lot of lines of code, and we can now also use this, let's say, lean look of the minimal API. We just add our endpoint here and we're done. And now let's test this real quick after talking so much. I hope you are still with me. Thank you very much. All right, now you see something changed, right? We got the video game API VSA. This is our project name in the end. And here now we have this get method. So we can just try this out and we get two games, Spider-Man and Skyrim. Isn't that nice? Now let's change all the other endpoints real quick. So first, create a game. Again, instead of the controller, we can actually copy and paste stuff here. So let's copy that, go back here, actually, again, inside the static class, like that. And here now, this is always the same, but this now has to change. And in this specific example, instead of get, we're using post, but still with API games. So maybe we could use this or put this route somewhere else. We use the sender. This is also correct, but now we also need a command. So command it is. Again, if you're not familiar with CQRS, this is our request. All right, so this is our request object, and the class name is command. And again, regarding CQRS, you're using the term query for everything that is reading data of a database. You don't change anything, and everything else, meaning creating, updating, and deleting something in the database, is then a command. So in our case, this then would be a command because we want to create a video game in this particular case. So we are changing something in the database. All right, so we got our command here, and now here, let's add some curly braces. Okay, now something's broken. Let's see. First, we send this command here, right? Not new command. This is the command we want to send. All right, but after that then, and this is why I actually need the curly braces. So let me add this and this. Jesus. Let's add this here and put that here, and now everything is broken. Well, let's just see. First, our game. Our new game is await sender send command like that, and already fixed. Awesome. And here what we want to return, and this comes now from minimal APIs here, this results class, a factory for I result, and we call created with, yep, this is correct, the route API games game ID. If we would have implemented getting one single game by ID, then this is the correct URL or the correct route with the game, with the resulting game. So let's save that and try that real quick. There we are, we reload, and you see now a bit more structure, right? Now we get our post here. We can test the request. Let's add, for instance, the God of War reboot. Genre is action at venture, and this was released 2018. We hit send, and there it is. We get the created with the location. Now 4 is the new ID, and this is the data. And let's just double check in the database. There it is, God of War action adventure. Isn't that nice? Okay, so create now also works. Let's update a game. Let me just copy that again real quick. And now here in update game, we can remove the controller. And here now we do the following. We have the sender, we have the command, but we now also have an ID that we want to add, because as you can see here, right, we want to find the game first by its ID. So let's add the ID here as a parameter. And now the updated game is await sender send command. And now it's getting interesting. The command is a record, right? So it's immutable. You actually cannot change it. But we have this little keyword here called with. And what this does is we can say, yep, grab this record, make a copy, but change the ID. So make a copy of this command, because we cannot change a record in essence, right? But we can make a copy, and then in this copy we can change it, or we create a copy with a little change. And in this case, we want to change the ID. Now, why should we do this, you might ask, right? Because here in this command, we already have this ID. So we will have then a request object with the ID already. Yes, but there's also this other point here where we have to provide the ID in the route. Now, the alternative here, of course, could be that we check if the ID in the route, so the entered parameter in the end of this route, is exactly the same as the ID of the command. So this would be one way, and we did this before in the controller way. Or here now, what we could also do is we just say this thing here is the winner, let's say. So the ID from the route is what we want to use. And then here now in the command, we also set this ID. And then here, when we are in our handle method, then from that command, we grab this ID of this command or of this request and try to get the video game with the specific ID. And then here, if it is null, you can still return null as well. All right, and this is why I'm using the with keyword here. If there's a better way and I'm missing something, please tell me that in the comments, and I'm very sorry for that. Anyway, so this is our updated game, and then what do we want to return? Well, first we check if the updated game is not null. If this is the case, then we return results, okay, updated game. All right, and if this is not the case, then we just return not found. And we could also add something like video game with, we add the $ here with ID not found, like that. And this is then our update endpoint. Let's restart everything, and we have to wait a little bit, and then we have to fix something here. See, copy paste errors, still the same. Every time when you copy paste something, you really have to pay attention. Yeah. Anyways, now we get our puts. Awesome. So here now, let's test that real quick. And let's say we have, not for the cookie, yeah, here, there's the query parameter. We have ID 5, we hit send, and it says video game with ID 5 not found. But what about God of War? No, it has ID 4, also 4. This is still an action at a venture, but now we wanna use Ragnarok, and this was released 2022, like that. So now let's hit send, and we see 4. All right, now if I, for instance, say ID 6 here, hit send, still works. All right, so again, we could add some validation here. You tell me what is the better way. So updating also works. Last thing, deleting. As you can see here, this is the last endpoint that is left. So let's go back to Visual Studio. And now here in delete, maybe we again copy this first. I know that's again time for another copy paste error, but let's just see. And remember, you can get the complete source code of this project with the link in the video description below. But now here, it's not map put anymore, it is map delete. See, so no copy paste error anymore. What we have here is one command with an ID, but no response really, just this bool value. So what now? Well, pretty simple. We just say we have the ID here, and what we can then do is, instead of using the using a provided command, because there is no command really, what you want to do is we say use the sender here with a new command. So new command with the given ID, but we can remove a lot because this block is not necessary anymore. This is also not necessary. And now here we say, if this is null, or the other way around, if this is not null, we return no content. Otherwise, we return not found, video game with ID not found. But let's close this here. So this is fixed. And same thing here, everything fine. All right, so this is already our delete endpoint. So map delete API games. We have our ID here from the route. This is something I almost forgot, although it's actually not really necessary, right? So let's just try that. So API games, we have our parameter here. So let's just restart the application. So now everything is under video game API VSA. We go to delete, test the request, and here we see the query parameters. Let's say ID 4, we hit send, and no content. So something has been deleted. What about ID 4 now? Again, not found. and in the database, let's double check, execute God of War is gone. Now what happens, or what is different if we add the parameter here? So what is mandatory in the controller way? All right, I reloaded the complete application, and as you can see here now, we already see the parameter here, which is nice. Gotta say that. Now when I want to test the request, I see the variables here, right? So maybe we should add it to the route as well, because now I can enter, for instance, 3 here, hit send, and 2, and the entry is gone. Now there's one thing missing. What if users send invalid data? So you want to validate the data first. Well, if you want to do that, check out this video here on the screen.